From the very first moment that Jamie starts speaking, you know that he is a kind and wonderful human. I am so excited that today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, I have the opportunity for you to hear my conversation with Jamie, where he talks about how he and his husband Sean met and then got married and then were gifted with becoming parents to their gorgeous son, Malcolm. Additionally, we talk about the fact that he is deeply involved in making the world a better place through advocacy and running for public office. Oh, and did I mention he's a voice actor? He's an 8-year-old kid's best friend when it comes to voice acting because he's done Pokemon. And next fall, he has a new series coming out on Netflix called Winx Club. He is just Dad of the Year. Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited today to have the opportunity to be sitting chatting with Jamie McGonnigal. And I'm going to tell you right off the start that we've had hiccups trying to get this show together for today, but we are at it. We are seeing one another over Zoom, and it's going to be a great conversation. Welcome, Jamie. Please tell everyone who you are and about the members of your family.
As you said, my name's Jamie. I am a gay dad and a voice actor for Pokemon and a PTA president and a whole bunch of things. And I'm currently running for school board in my county, and that's those are the big pieces right now. And I have a husband named Sean and a son named Malcolm. My son is 8 years old, and he's a second grader at his elementary school right now. We're on the PTA president. My husband is awesome. We've been married, 13 years this year.
Remind me when marriage was legalized in the U.S.
The year we got married in 2013.
The year you got married. Nice.
Yeah, we helped organize the protests outside the Supreme Court in March. Actually, we just passed the anniversary of that, so 13 years ago, and we did, and then we got married later that year, and then a month after we got married was when the decision came down that it was legal in all states.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's, I mean, as it should be. However, and it's, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that time goes by and it's just been a thing for a while, so we forget how long it's necessarily been, right? I mean, that could be a good thing.
It could, and strangely enough, we're living in a really messed up time right now where we have several states who are trying to pass laws to bring it back to a time when our laws were unequal.
I don't understand. I will take it to my grave, my belief that it shouldn't matter to anyone else who's in my bed and who's behind my closed doors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you don't want to get gay married, don't marry someone of the same gender. It shouldn't be that hard. Like it's hard. Yeah.
I don't understand how my marriage affects anybody else. But what do I know? Because clearly they're offended for some reason. They just don't. They don't know why.
I'm sure it has nothing to do with them, though.
No.
Well, you. Yeah.
Definitely. So how long were you and Sean together before you decided that you knew you wanted to become parents? Was it like a first date conversation?
It wasn't a first date conversation. We did have the conversation eventually. I don't remember the first conversation we had about it. But I think when it got really interesting was actually 2014. We'd been married about a year at that point. We're sitting on our couch, and we said, "Hey, do you want to talk about this kid thing? Because we just bought a house, and we have a really nice swing set in the backyard." And we kind of thought through it. We talked through it. My goal was I wanted to, if I was going to do this, I wanted to at least start the process by the time I was 40, because I didn't want to be 80 at a high school graduation, right?
Fair.
And so we thought about what our life would look like with kids and without. And we realized without, we'd keep doing what we're doing. It's fun. We're having a great time. But part of the reason that we're together, part of the reason that we do what we do in advocacy was focused on making sure the next generation had it a little easier than we did. We fight because we want young queer kids growing up to have an easier time of it. And with that in mind, we said, all right, this feels right, and so we started that process. We started out with a class called Maybe Baby, which was run by Rainbow Families, which is an organization here in the DC area, and an organization which, strangely enough, my husband is now the president of the board of. So we've gotten very involved. But yeah, so that was the start of it for us, really, the first big conversation.
And that kind of jumped right over. So you and Sean, like before babies, before conversation. How long have you've been married for 13 years? But
Yeah.
when did you first meet? When did you fall in
Oh,
love and
we
know that he was the one?
Yeah, we have a good meet cute. We had I lived in New York at the time. This is in 2010. I had spent a lot of time producing Broadway concerts and events and raising funds for organizations I cared about. And then I ended up in Africa. The with the the UN Association had invited me to run this program, bringing 30 American teenagers over to very rural parts of Southern Africa, in Namibia and South Africa specifically. And I came back from that, and I kind of saw the world with new eyes. I still wanted to be doing theater. I loved doing theater. I loved doing cartoons. It was great. But I feel like I needed to be using my power for good. And I saw that I had what people refer to as organizing power. Someone saw that I could put together these huge Broadway concerts with 2,000 people in the audience and 200 people on stage, and they said you can use that in other ways too.
Mhm.
And so I started a small organization called Talk About Equality, focused on getting folks having conversations at the dinner table, coming out of the closet, or at least talking to people about marriage specifically. And I got involved with other organizing groups that were popping up after Prop 8 in
Mhm.
California.
Mhm.
And I found myself putting together a rally, or helping to organize a rally in DC, focused on Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was the military's policy banning queer people. Um,
Right.
and I was handing out flyers the night before the event at all the gay bars in DC. And I walked into Nellie's, and this guy came up to me and he said, "You're not from here, are you?" I said, "How can you tell?" He said, "You're carrying a big gay Metro DC map." And so he grabbed half my flyers and spent the rest of the night handing out flyers with me. And yeah, now we're married and have a kid.
Wild.
Yeah.
So he obviously, if he says you're not from around here, are you? Then that suggests that he was.
Yes, yeah, he had grown up
And
here. He actually grew up about 5 minutes from our door. So we have grandmas who live just a couple blocks away. And when I called my brother to say that we were buying this house, and I was like, "Yeah, and grandma, my in-laws live a few minutes away, so we'll have built-in daycare." And he goes, "Yeah, and they're gonna have built-in home health care, so just get ready." I was like, "Ah."
yeah. It goes both ways,
It does.
right?
It does. It does. But no, they've been great. It's been great to have his family around. We're family. We hang out a lot. They take care of Malcolm a lot, and our pups. But yeah, it's been quite the journey.
That's what. So, so how long were you commuting back and forth? Because that's what, about a 4 hour trip
Yeah, three and a half,
between.
4 hours.
Yeah.
I took A Bolt bus or a mega bus back and forth for the better part of a year. We'd see each other at least every other weekend for the most part. He came up occasionally to New York, and then I'd come down here. And at one point, we're like, okay, this is a little untenable. Let's make a move. So we had every time I came down to DC, we would wrap up the weekend, usually in Lincoln Park, which is in Northeast DC, not far from Union Station. So there was this little house that had a wine shop and cheese shop on the bottom floor. There was also a florist. And we would grab a bottle of wine, we'd sit in the park, and we'd hang out until it was time for me to walk over to Union Station and get on a bus home. And so we had spent, after about a year, we'd spent a long weekend, a very long, hard weekend, looking at apartments to no avail. And then in the middle of the afternoon, Sunday, I got a call that my aunt had passed away, and it was someone I was close with, and I was like, let's just get our bottle of wine. Let's go to the park. I don't need to look at other apartments today. We looked at like a dozen of them. Uh, and we're sitting there, and this guy walks out and next to the house that has the wine shop in it, and puts up a little for rent sign. And we're like, what's that? Let's go look at that. And the guy was like, yeah, we're just about to have an open house. Come on in. So we walked up. It was, I think, 500 square foot apartment on
Oh,
the top of a row house right on the corner of Lincoln Park, overlooking this park that we'd spent every weekend at. And there were probably 30 people who came into this 500 square foot apartment looking at it. We
oh,
filled out an application, and these two guys who were renting it, they go, can you guys come downstairs? And they're like this little southern gentleman, and he goes, okay, darlings, is this going to be your first apartment together? And we're like, yes, we're moving in together for the first time. They said, well, it's yours, we'll close down the open house right away. And I was
oh,
like, oh,
oh.
okay. So yeah, that was our first apartment in DC, and I had trouble finding getting a job when I first got here. So I worked in the flower shop on the first floor for a
There
couple
we
of months.
go, Andy.
It was great. It was great. Yeah. But that was our first apartment here.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
it is what a great story. I don't know. I love stories like that. I love things that just sort of happen the way that they're meant to happen. And clearly, these two gentlemen, if it was their place, probably had seen you around week after week after week.
It's
And
very
they're
possible. It's very possible. Yeah. I have a lot of stories. No one will ever accuse me of not having enough stories. So I could go on for days.
there you
At any
go.
any given party I'm at, I'm very much an introvert, who is good at pretending he's an extrovert. But
Mm.
at any given party, my most comfortable spot is in a corner holding court telling stories.
Telling stories. I love it. I do profess to be an extroverted introvert myself.
Mhm.
I will be extroverted when I have to be,
Mhm.
but you need to give me that recharge time because
Yeah.
I will really not do well
Yeah. I mean, I'm
if
running
I
for office now. It's
yeah.
it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
It is. It is a lot. But you're running for office, and all of that is sort of tied into the fact that you are a parent now. And so, and nothing like, running back and forth between
Mhm.
stories and, as we go today.
Yeah.
But the two of you meet, you get married, you decide not long after that you're going to start a family. You
Mhm.
attend this class, this maybe baby class with rainbow babies. And I mean, in our world, we have the gift of being able to decide how we want to create our
Mhm.
families. And I say we have the gift to be able to decide. For some people, it's not really a decision because some routes are just absolutely prohibitive.
Yeah.
And others know that their hearts can't take other routes. So
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
find the one that works best for them. How did you and Sean come up with the decision about the best way for the two of you to create your family?
That's a great question. Well, this maybe baby class, actually, the purpose of it was to walk you through all the different options that were available. Surrogacy was not an option for us, mostly because of cost.
Yeah.
We were far from wealthy, and that was a scary option for us, mostly because even after pouring out potentially well over $100,000, you're still not guaranteed
Yeah.
a child. And at the end of the day, we we looked at it and realized, hey, there's a lot of kids out there who don't have families and
Yeah.
need them. And if natural selection is a thing,
Yeah.
here we have all these people who are ready to be parents, who will be great parents. And here we have all these kids on the other side who need parents.
Yeah.
It seemed like a no-brainer for us. Neither of us were, particularly tied to continuing on our gene pool. That was
Okay.
not a big piece of it for us necessarily. Um, and so we decided to go through the foster to adopt route.
Okay.
We registered through child services in DC, even though we lived in Maryland, mostly because DC, the courthouses specifically are a lot closer to us physically than
Mhm.
the courthouses in Maryland, and we knew there's a lot of back and forth. So it was quite a lengthy process getting registered and getting all the background checks and the home inspections, a lot of them. And we were ready to go after, I think, about 9 months. We had about 40 hours of class we had to take,
Mhm.
and all these things that, if I was a heterosexual parent, I could just do by accident. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
we can't, much though we may try, we cannot have children by accident.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, we started that process, and over the course of that process, it took us about 3 years before we never had a placement. We had one
Okay.
child one time that we came close, and we met with a child's social worker after child services had called us to put us on the list. Um, and the child social worker had an enormous cross around her neck, never once
Right.
looked us in the face during our
Mhm.
interview with her.
Mhm.
And they don't tell you why you were turned down. You just learn you were turned down, and they will not give you any kind of details. The process was a little heartbreaking overall because, I mean, we had an empty room waiting for 3 years. We we were told early on, like, never expect an infant. You're never going to have an infant out of this process. You'll have someone who's 4 or 5 at the youngest, someone who's been in the system. We were ready for that. And in
Yeah.
fact, when they have you fill out all this paperwork, obviously, and we filled out a form that said, what types of children, what types of behaviors, what types of illnesses, chronic illnesses might you be able to deal with. And we checked off pretty much everything. I think one of the things that we said no to was a child with a history of animal abuse because we had pets. Uh,
Right.
they called us and they said, "Wow, you guys will take anyone." And we said, "Well, we feel prepared, and this is something we really want to do." And they said, "Why don't you want a kid who's over 13?" And I was like, "Well, my heart breaks. Like, I would love to do that, but honestly, we don't feel like we have the resources to send someone to college in 5 years."
Right.
And the response broke my heart eh, so hard. They said, "You shouldn't expect any of these kids to go to college." And these are the people
Oh.
who are supposed to be their biggest advocates. These are the people who are supposed to be protecting them, standing up for them. And the fact they
Yeah.
didn't think these kids had any kind of future like that was just devastating.
Yeah.
And you can't say anything in those moments because you get moved to the bottom of the list, right? And you don't want to make any waves in this moment because you need something
Mhm.
from them.
Mhm.
And so I just said, well, I'd like it to be an option for them should they choose to do it. And right now, that's just not an option for us. And so we waited and waited and waited. We kept having check-ins with the social workers, and every year we had to get recertified. And then at the end of the third year, we were about to say no. We were about to stop doing it. We'd just gotten 2 puppies. My dog had passed, and we were like, we can't be in an empty house. Let's get this puppy. We
Mhm.
were about to bring her home, and she was a high maintenance puppy. We knew she was a terrified dog. They found her in the woods, and the shelter called us the night before we went to pick them up and said, "We have another dog who was just returned to us, who is really helping this puppy come out of her shell, just in case you want to." Ha 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 ha. And, so we brought home 2 puppies because we figured, we're probably not going to have a kid at this point.
Mhm.
And then 3 weeks later, we got a call saying we have a little boy who was born last night. Do you want him? And they,
Wow.
again, they prepared us to never have an infant. That's not going to be an option for you.
Mhm.
And we said, can we think about it? And they said, you have 1 hour.
Mhm.
And so I called my brother, whose first response was, "Well, it's going to cost you $25,000 in the first year." Because that's the way my brother thinks.
Right.
I was like, "We'll be okay." And yeah, I called my employer. I was like, "Hey, what's our paternity policy?" And he said, "Actually, I was just thinking about that. It was a new company." And he said, "Why? When are you thinking?" And I said, "Tomorrow." And he goes, "You know what? Take all the time you need. Let's do this." My
Oh,
husband was in a
God.
similar situation, so yeah, it was just all kind of magic. And my we had it was the end of 2017, so I think there was a lot of we needed some good news.
Hmm.
It had been a very hard year for us in the US. And we posted that, hey, surprise everyone, we're parents now. And we had the next 2 weeks we opened over 200 boxes from Amazon that just showed up. Sean had to go to work a little bit afterwards, and I'm home with an infant that I don't know how to take care of. I'm making this up as I go along.
Sure.
Uh,
As every parent does with an
Right,
infant, to be
right. The best
fair.
advice I got, I called right when we found out this was happening. I called all my friends who are have good kids because I'm like, you're doing something right. And I spoke to my friend Laura and her husband Patrick, and I said, what should I do? And they said, okay, we can send you 20 parenting books tonight, and you can read them all, and all you will be is an expert in parenting books. You're not going to know what your kid needs until you meet them. And I tell that to everybody who becomes a parent.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, it was all kind of magic. We had I don't know 20 trays of lasagna that showed up at some point or another from people we didn't
Excellent.
even know. People were
Wow.
like most of the packages we got were from people we didn't know. It was wild. Our mayor came over, helped us build the Amazon wish list. It was crazy, but so incredibly fun. And now we've kept him alive 8 years, which is I think
Hey.
something.
Yeah. It is something to get this far, 100%, because they're so fully dependent. Then they get to their teen years and keeping them alive takes on a whole new meaning, right?
It does in so many ways.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't take that lightly. I know it's
No,
we say in one way, but in a
no.
whole other way, as I can look at it as a PTA parent and advocating
Sure.
for safer schools and making sure guns aren't in the schools,
Yeah.
and then I can look at it from the fact that I'm a white guy. We're two white guys raising a kid who's not white, and
Right.
having that conversation about how to speak to police and how to avoid being racially profiled in a city now that is highly targeted by immigration.
Mhm.
So it's a huge, huge conversation that we're already having to have at 8 years old.
Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back. You know you want to start a family, but you're really not sure where to start, what questions to ask, who is your best person to connect with. Well, I would say that the best person to connect with is Sam from Baby Ready. We have connections and resources, answers to questions, and we have been helping support families for over 25 years. So when you are looking to start the process of creating the family of your dreams, look no further than Baby Ready. You can learn more about the services we offer and the places you can meet us in person at www.babyready.info. And I wonder, given that you are gay dads raising a child, you are having conversations with your son from birth about family origin and family
Mhm.
creation, because he's obviously not come into your family where the two of you have given birth to him
Right.
from your
Yeah.
own genetics, as we've already talked about. So because of how he's come into your family, because of the conversations that by default you are already having with him, is it easier maybe for you to have these conversations with him about safety and about the world we live in and about understanding dynamics within groups of people and all of that,
Mhm.
because you've already been having very honest conversations that so many parents, cis het parents, don't have with their kids because they want to let kids be kids and they don't want to scare them and all of these things. And,
Mhm.
and I get it.
Yeah.
Nobody wants their kid to be afraid, but at
Yeah.
the same time, they need to be wise and they need
Yeah.
to be safe. So, do you think that that's maybe some, because of how he's come to your family, that that's impacted how you felt like you can teach him and talk to him?
That's a great question. Very interesting phrasing. We have been honest with him since birth, and uh, when his social worker came at one point when he was just a few weeks old, or maybe a few months old, and she sat right across from us. We're holding this baby, and she said, "So, are you going to tell him that he's adopted?" I looked at Sean, and I looked at her. I said, I think he'll probably figure it out.
Yeah,
But no, we made like a Shutterfly book of his story that
yeah,
we still read to him every once in a while. The adoption was closed because of how he came to us and in from DC. So we also know his birth mom's information mostly because DC Child Services is really bad at redacting things, and the way the laws are written, it allowed us to find out who she was, so we know who she is. But we're also uh, we'll come to the point where we, have that conversation about reaching out when we feel he's old enough, and we've kind of offered it to him already. We don't have an agreement with her, but the child services does that she's supposed to be able to remain anonymous. Um, so beside that, to answer your question, uh, we've we've always been in places where uh, we look at our process with him as not wanting him to be othered in any way
yeah,
that's within our control. He's already othered in so many other ways. He doesn't have his birth parents. His parents are two guys. He's a different color than his parents. Uh, and so things that are within our control, we're not going to put him in situations where he's othered in other ways.
yeah,
So we talked about moving back to Massachusetts, where I grew up, and we'd love to live in New England, but he'd be the only person of color in his school. I mean, let's be honest.
yeah,
And we don't want that for him. Um, all that being said, the conversation part of it, yeah, we have a lot of honesty here, and yes, him just being able to be a kid is super important to me.
hmm
It's one of my platforms that I'm running on,
hmm
because I think anything that I can provide as a board member or as even as PTA president that lets kids just be kids as opposed to being worried about whether their parents are going to be home when they get there. Uh,
yeah,
that's vital. That being said, yeah, we have honest conversations about what's going on, couched in a way that is not there to scare him. But he does get scared, obviously. I mean,
sure,
we're living a very scary time. He hasn't seen with his own eyes, arrests happening or anything like that, but he has two parents who are showing up to protests, who are, supporting families in the ways that we can. So he gets it to some extent. He still has an 8-year-old brain, and
sure,
processes it the way that an 8-year-old is supposed to. But he comes and asks questions when they come up, and we answer them. We answer them honestly. And as they get older, the questions get a little bit more intense,
hmm
and they usually come when you're not expecting them.
yeah,
And you're like, can
yes,
I answer this when I get out of the bathroom?
yeah,
Or right before drop off at school, right?
hmm
And so, yeah, there's challenges there, but honesty and couching it in a way um, that they'll understand it with, while also knowing they have your support and they can keep asking questions as they come up, I think is vital.
yeah, yeah. That's very true because I think the minute we close the door on making our children feel as though we'll answer any question they ask
Hmm.
is the time when our children start doing things that is that they need us more than ever to
Yeah,
be
and
there to answer the questions.
yeah, and listen, we're living in a county right next door to the county where this we had this Supreme Court decision last year that essentially banned LGBTQ books from schools.
Yeah.
And it's wild to me. It's couched as you can opt your kid out of books that contain any sort of LGBTQ themes. But what that looks like in practice is teachers don't have the time to figure out, okay, this person, this person, this person, they have opted out, so I'm going to remove them from the class. What that ends up looking like is them just removing the books because they don't have the time to figure out, who can
Yeah.
hear it, who can't.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, though, these sort of book bans, these sort of, conversations that you don't want your kid to have, they're not preparing your kid for the real world.
No.
They may be, quote unquote, protecting your kid from learning something you don't want them to learn, but it in no way prepares them for the world that they're going to have to deal with when they leave school,
No.
or when they're out of school for the day at the end of the day. Their my kid has two dads. Luckily at my school, I went in and I've read several books to my kids' classes about families who look like ours.
Yeah.
And I know, and I've had conversations with the teachers, to make sure on Mother's Day they're they're not making things, filling out, paperwork or not paperwork, but doing artwork or gifts for moms when my kid doesn't have a mom.
Right.
Um, so yeah, just finding ways to approach those conversations and have them now. So again, the next generation of queer parents don't have to.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
training them
Yeah.
up.
Well, and hopefully that's it. Hopefully we're training them up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you have, and well, you've got two things that have jumped out at me. One, I want to talk about the PTA and running for office. But before that, I have to talk about the fact that you have an 8-year-old and you are a voice actor for Pokemon. Like, do you sit in this different stratosphere among parents with your kid? Like, no, you don't get it. My dad does that. Like,
Mhm.
because it feels like it's a perfect age range.
It is. I mean, honestly, the Pokemon work I did was more than a decade ago.
Oh, okay.
But he can still listen to it. He can still watch it, and now gets it. Mostly because I've shown up to career days where all the other parents end up hating me because they're
Right.
like, "I'm a vet. What am I supposed to do with this when you're a Pokemon actor?" Um,
Right.
but in all seriousness, though, the fun comes really in being able to experience it with him. And I'm
Mhm.
doing a newer show now that just started airing on Netflix in the fall called Winx Club. That's an older show from the mid 2000s. They've done a reboot of, and I'm
Okay.
one of the male leads on it. And so we had like a premiere party at my in my backyard, and a bunch of his friends came. We all watched it together. He ended up dressing as one of the fairies from it for Halloween. So experiencing it in real time with him when I'm watching it for the first time, and so is he. Uh,
Yes.
that part is really, really fun. And then I mean, he has friends in school who only refer to me as my characters from Pokemon. They don't know my name. They say, "Hey, Barry." I'm like, "Okay, hey." But no, that's a very fun part of it. Yes, as far as being a parent goes and being a Pokemon voice actor, yeah, living that through his eyes and with him is pretty awesome.
I bet. As soon as you said that he was 8, I was like, well, come on. Like, I remember when my kids were 8 and
Mhm.
Pokemon was a thing for sure. And that
Yeah.
was, well, my eldest was 8 20 years ago. So it's been a thing for a
It's
while.
still a
And
thing. Yeah, yeah. 30 years on.
there you go. There you go. Can we talk about the work that you're doing running for office? What is your motivation for that? Because I ask that question because I even think about when my stepdaughter was in elementary school and grade school. My wife became the chair of the school council board for or parent council board, and I was the secretary, so that we could be queer faces in the room to
Yeah.
remind people that there are queer people in the school and that there are families that are different and everything else. And so I can see the appeal to that with a parent council or PTA or whatever it's being called in your area when your kids are in the school. So now you're running for office.
Hmm.
So you are taking it to another, like, because we let it go when she left school. We're like, thank you very much. We are done with that. So what's the motivation? What's the draw there for you?
Yeah, so I've been able to see firsthand how our schools operate. I see the challenges we have. We have our county is, or our school district in our county is one of the largest in the country. Like we're in the top 20 largest school districts in the whole country.
Wow.
And I've seen challenges. I've seen that our school board is sometimes politicized in ways that it doesn't need to be or should be, and that's the
Mhm.
case across the country, right? People use school
Sure.
board races as a way to build up political momentum or to be the next step in their political career. Um, I feel like school boards should be separate from that. I feel like school
Mhm.
boards should be run by parents and teachers and people who have a real stake in how the schools do, right?
Mhm.
So I've seen this over the years. I've seen our school board treated as something political. I've seen it treated as something that is temporary for so many people. And so that's the thing that drove me the most, I think. We have a school board member who is stepping down after 8 years. She's been incredible, and she's loved by her parents. We have two new schools being built, among them my kids. Right now, a lot of that because of the work she's done. And so I've also been on the back end. I've been helping to advocate to get those schools built, and so I've seen the work that goes into it. I don't know everything there is to know necessarily about being on the school board yet, but I do know a lot of uh, the stakes, a lot of why it's important to parents, why it's important to all of us, and then the transition for me has been learning about why it should be important for people who are not parents, right?
Right.
Uh, Everything from making sure that we have strong schools and that our electorate is engaged and educated, to property values, right? On all the Zillows and Redfins, there's a school score there because you want parents and families to move to your area to increase your property value. So
Sure.
if you don't have valuable schools in the numbers that are there, that's important too. At
Yes.
the end of the day, though, I find that our schools have been very focused on numbers, very focused on test scores.
Mm.
And while that's important to make sure that we're tracking how our kids are learning and that they're learning effectively, we also have so many other things that make up who our kids are. I was a kid who grew up in a place where every little boy played sports, and there was something wrong with you if you didn't. And it
Mhm.
took a fifth grade music teacher saying, "Hey, there's a community theater production of Evita happening. They need kids for it. Would you be interested in this?" And it opened up an entire world for me. It
Right.
made me less depressed. It made me find something I could own that I loved. And I went on to have a theater career for years after that. All because my fifth grade public school music teacher, invited me to do this. So I see how important it is. I see our kids now, like I said, afraid to or um, me having to walk them home from their buses because their parents are afraid to leave their house. Uh, these are kids with very real fears and very real challenges in our community.
Yeah.
And they also, on the other end of the spectrum, have very real dreams and very real hopes that they want to achieve. And if we're not looking at them as whole individuals and instead looking at them as numbers on a chart of how our school is doing, we're not seeing the whole picture.
Right.
So I think I can help with that.
I love that. I
Yeah.
think that's, I think that that is more motivation than a lot of people who run for office have. In my experience of having spoken with people who have run for office and just different, all kinds of different office. So when is that, when is all of that being decided for you?
It's being decided now. I mean, it's nonstop right now. It's June 23rd is the primary, and then the general election is in November. But June 23rd, it doesn't matter all that much for us because the top two vote getters automatically move on, and there's only two of us running. Uh,
Okay.
so right now it's just about name recognition, making sure I'm meeting as many folks as possible, hearing people's stories, and yeah, and sharing my message to folks.
That's that's pretty cool. And what a gift that you're giving your son, showing him that you believe in something so fundamentally that you are willing to put yourself out there to have other people decide whether or not you're suited for it. That you're teaching your son something about being vulnerable because it's something that you believe in. And I think that that's a pretty remarkable thing that many of us don't even have the chance to teach our children.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Before I let you go, what's next for your family as a family?
We love it here, and we live in a really nice community. We live in a very progressive area, and that counts for something. And with the current administration, we have a lot of challenges, and since we're a progressive area, we're being targeted, and we
Right.
have a lot of families around here that are being targeted, and so we have an incredible community of people who are standing up to protect them as well. And I think that's something great to grow up around. I think there's lots of things I want to still be doing, and a lot of that can happen here, which is great. I have a sound booth set up here, so I can do my recording here, which is great. We also have a beach house in Ocean City, which is near the beach, which is great. So we mostly rent it out, but we get down there once in a while for a week or a weekend in the summer, which is nice. But yeah, every weekend right now is kind of all campaign all the time, uh,
Beautiful.
for the time being. But I'll tell you what, come November 4th, we are on a boat or plane or somewhere, going somewhere else for a little while.
Just taking that breath, right?
Yep, yep. And hopefully
What?
I win, and then I'd start that job in December. So
There you go. There you go. You've got a
yeah,
nice turnaround time from
yeah, yeah.
from from November to December. What is your very, very favorite part of parenting Malcolm?
That's a great question. There's a lot. I think the fact that I get to be his parent is the first thing. It's as a gay dad, it's not something that we take for granted.
Right.
I'm not saying heterosexual parents take it for granted, but this isn't something we can do by accident, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
Um, it's something that's very intentional for us. So all the decisions we make as parents are pretty intentional as well.
Mhm.
Um, and I get to be a parent. When I first came out to my mom, uh, she said to me, like, she was disappointed, and she was disappointed for one reason, and it was that she said, "I wanted you to become a parent." And at the time, in the early 90s, that was not an option.
Yeah.
And so I never thought I'd be able to do this.
Yeah.
So the fact that I get to do this is a pretty great part. The more favorite part, though, for me is just seeing all the iterations of him,
Mm.
watching him grow up, and being able to love, this next version of him, while I also miss the last version of him.
Yeah.
He's huge. He just keeps growing and growing. And while I would love to stop time and hold this one fast, I just love the new version of him every morning I wake up.
Yeah.
And so I feel really lucky that I get to be his papa, and that I get to be one of the people who sees him grow into who he's becoming.
I love that. I want to take a moment. Thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me today, for telling people about how you and Sean created your beautiful family and the difference you are making in the world that you live in. You are a force, and I'm so grateful to know you. Thank
You,
you.
I so appreciate the time.
As a queer individual with colonial lineage, I want to first acknowledge the land upon which I live and work. Being from what is now known as Burlington, Ontario, I recognize the original ancestry of these lands as they span from Lake Ontario to the Niagara Escarpment and beyond. These lands are steeped in Indigenous history that benefits my community every day. The territory is mutually covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy, the Ojibwe, and other allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I stand is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. The land dictates everything about our ways of being. Particularly, the land teaches us about fluidity. Concepts of the binary system and heteropatriarchy were imposed by the colonials who were, at the same time, removing children from their homes, families, and all that was familiar to them. These same children were divided by the only two prescribed binaries recognized by the settlers, and they were forced to conform to a performative, gendered falsehood. The land doesn't operate under binary thinking. It is diverse, complex, and unpredictable at times. Rather, the land holds us and all of our remarkable paths and identities. Every organism and spirit has a purpose. It is from this understanding that I strive to live and grow. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.